Hello and welcome to Moneylife. This is Sucheta Dalal. First of all, wish you all a very, very happy new year. We start a new decade and let's hope for a lot of development and peace. But having said that, let me start with something which you may not really like. This is about the FRDI Bill. If you remember, this was a bill that was introduced in Parliament in August 2017, withdrawn a year later in August 2018 after there was a hue and cry across the country because people absolutely panicked and thought that their bank deposits are no longer safe. Why did they think that? Because that bill had a strange provision which is called bail-in. What is bail-in? Bail-in is sort of the opposite of bailout. What bail-in does is to convert deposits of larger depositors above a certain threshold level, the threshold being the level at which deposits are insured by the Deposit Insurance Guarantee Corporation. Anything above that is deemed fit would be converted forcibly into equity and used to bail out the bank and recapitalize it. Now people panicked. Why did they panic? Because bad loans of banks had been increasing steadily. In fact, bad loans of banks have reached 10 lakh crore and the government of India has been doling out large amounts of money to recapitalize banks, especially public sector banks, because they are owned by the government and so the government has to take responsibility for them. There's been no such problem in large private banks, although Yes Bank had created a huge scare recently, which was the biggest scare since Global Trust Bank went down in around 2004-05 after what is called the Ketan Parekh security scam. Global Trust Bank was bailed out by force merging it with Oriental Bank of Commerce. After that, we had this massive global financial crisis and internationally, several nations got together. India is part of a treaty, multilateral treaty, where they've committed to ensure that bailouts will not be done by governments as was done in 2008 in the US, but would have to be done by depositors of banks. In the Indian situation, that was vastly unfair because banks are owned by the government and we trust that our deposits are safe in public sector banks. In fact, the entire Indian savings situation is different. We are big savers. We don't have social security. So many of us who are taxpayers have to depend on the money that we've squirreled away all our lives after paying our full taxes. And so many of us have burnt our fingers in Ponzi schemes, in stock markets, and even in mutual funds. The returns are very, very volatile and violently fluctuating. So we trust bank deposits more than anything else. Now, imagine a situation where these bank deposits are unsafe. So there was a hue and cry, the government withdrew the bill. The news this time is that probably in the first session of Parliament, the bill is likely to be reintroduced. I have this exclusive report which is based on a briefing note which was provided to members of the cabinet and various people in government by Mr. Atanu Chakravarti, who is the Economic Affairs Secretary of the Government of India. This is called the Financial Sector Development and Regulation (Resolution Bill) of 2019, or in short FSDR. This is likely to be reintroduced, like I said, with a much broader framework. Now, if you remember, after ILFS went down, which is Infrastructure Leasing and Financial Services, there's been a lot of demand from the banking sector that we don't have a financial resolution plan for the financial sector. And resolution of financial sector companies, especially complex ones like ILFS was allowed to grow into by our regulators, has to be completely different from what is being done under the bankruptcy code. It needs a separate resolution code and formula. So this new bill, which is the FSDR bill, aims to provide that. It is vast in its scope. It covers all kinds of organizations, non-banking finance companies, systemically important companies, which are going to be designated non-banking finance companies, cooperative banks for the first time ever, regional rural banks or urban banks. Every kind of financial institution is going to come under financial resolution. That's a good part. The bill also says on record that the bail-in provision has been withdrawn. Now, that is a bit of a eyewash, and I will come to that later. So the bail-in provision exists, but it's a different, in fact, I would say that we are not clear how it's going to work. We hope that when the bill is introduced, there's going to be debate, various other stakeholders are going to ask for changes. So remember, this is a draft bill, still secret and exclusive, that we have got at Moneylife, and there may be changes to it. So let me highlight quickly what are the provisions of this bill. So because it's so broad in its scope, it is going to require an amendment to a whole bunch of statutes, every single statute, in fact, from the RBI Act to the SEBI Act, some Housing Development Act, Income Tax Act, GST Act. Many of these changes are procedural, so it's not material. There are tiny, tiny amendments that are required to all these acts to put in place this resolution framework. Now, the bill has defined, so how does resolution happen? So there are going to be some triggers which are going to start the resolution process. The central part of this bill is what is called a resolution authority. This is the authority to which everybody has to go when a financial entity looks like it's going to have payment problems or about to default or probably needs liquidation. This authority will have representation from all the sectoral regulators. So in the financial sector, we have 5 regulators. We have the Reserve Bank of India, we have the Securities Exchange Board of India, we have the insurance regulator, and we have the pension regulator, among others. The central government also will be represented. The structure is going to be that the resolution authority at one level is going to be a self-sustaining body. Key part of the resolution authority is the resolution authority insurance fund. Now, any of you who have followed what happened in PMC Bank know that suddenly we've all realized that Deposit Insurance Guarantee Corporation guarantees 1 lakh of each depositor, right? And banks are paying a premium in order to get that insurance. That deposit insurance guarantee, which was under a separate act in 1961, is going to be repealed. And you're going to have a new act, which is the Resolution Authority Insurance Fund. This fund is what will give you that minimum guarantee, and we don't know, but it may be across banks as well as other institutions if they're going to chip into it. So whether it will convert, whether it will cover people like Diwan Housing and ILFS of the future, we don't know as yet. But this will be key. They also say that deposit insurance is going to be raised. How much will it be raised? It's not known, but I'll come to that later. Other part is that there are 2 other components to this resolution authority structure. One is the resolution authority resolution fund, which will be collecting resolution fees from those who need to go for resolution. How much, what, still unknown. And there's a resolution general fund for meeting administrative expenses. It will also collect fees from specified service providers. Again, we don't know what that means. Already people are paying fees to sectoral regulators. To all market intermediaries have to pay fees all over again to yet another body that's being created. We don't know, but we will figure that out. Then each regulator will be tasked with creating a prompt corrective action framework. So they are trying to see here that each regulator has not lost all its authority. Each sectoral regulator, which is rather funny because they've all failed so far in preventing any kind of scam happening, but they're going to have triggers for when action has to be started. And this is going to divide companies into multiple levels. So one would be whether it's normal, so there's going to be risk-based assessment, and only when certain critical triggers are reached, where things are called critical or it requires imminent resolution, so out of the 5 classifications, that's when the resolution authority steps in. Until then, it has no role. Now let me come to the bail-in provision first. So the bail-in provision is going to be, first of all, the premium is going to be risk-based. This is what was being asked even to the deposit insurance guarantee, which the government hadn't done. But while talking about a bail-in provision, everything about it is completely vague, because under the bail-in, which they say has been removed, a certain minimum threshold is guaranteed, which today is 1 lakh irrespective for everybody. They want to raise it, they don't say how much. they don't even seem to want to fix it. So they're not saying it's going to be 5 lakh or it's going to be 10 lakh of your deposit per depositor that's going to be insured. That will be decided apparently by the resolution authority. This doesn't sound nice. It almost is like, show me the entity which has a problem, show me the political implications, and then I will decide how much of deposits per individual are going to be insured. I don't think a resolution fund can work like that. I don't think even risk-based premium can be collected without fixing and pinning down things and saying what is the level of risk, how much will be paid. And as you all know, this time also cooperative banks are included in the massive resolution authority system, but they have never paid risk-based premiums, and all the insurance that has been paid so far in the last 20 odd years has gone only to bail out, or it's not even bailing them out, it's shutting them down, and it's a payment to depositors of cooperative banks up to 1 lakh, which is rather small. So key features which are of relevance, they're going to decide which are systemically important financial institutions. So far the number was less and they had stringent disclosure requirements. They're going to increase the number probably, because what they say is that those who are newly designated will have some time given to them in order to meet all the requirements. Then the resolution authority will initiate action against the entity depending on, like I said, on classification at the critical stage. The types of resolutions again gives wide powers. So the resolution authority can do the following. And this is where the bail-in aspect becomes important, because the resolution authority is allowed to transfer whole or part of the assets and liabilities to another entity. So only assets and liabilities, which could be done even now. In fact, it was done with Memon Cooperative Bank and Bank of Baroda, but that power is back again. So instead of a takeover, it is only assets and liabilities. Does that leave depositors high and dry? We don't know. It may not. It can create a bridge service provider. It can cancel or modify liabilities. We don't know what the implication of this is. When it means cancel liabilities, does it mean even a liability to a depositor to repay their deposits? It is more than possible. In fact, this could be the alternative to what is called a bail-in. Let's see how it progresses. It will have the power to force mergers and acquisitions or liquidation or a runoff in the case of an insurance company. The time frame for all this, 1 year, but obviously they know it's not possible based on the ILFS experience, so it is 1 year which can be extended another year. Now we know that in the IBC they have not even managed to meet the deadline, so we don't know how it will work here. Finally, administratorship. When the resolution process kicks in, an administrator will be appointed who will act like a receiver and who will take care of things. Now, the problem with this bill, like I said, is lots of things are unclear. I do not believe the government is giving up the bail-in provision at all. It is finding another name for it. And I think we, the people, have to be alert to the fact that this draconian bill that was proposed in the past is coming back again. Why do I have a copy of this exclusive secret note? Because a lot of stakeholders have got a copy. Now, who are these stakeholders? They are all the people on the other side whom we have to worry about, which is the insurance companies, cooperative banks, the regular banks, the financial entities, which have in the last year created such havoc because they failed. Who has not been included in discussions, has not been told how it will work? We the depositors. It is our money that's affected. We are a large number. We ought to have more clout, but because we are disaggregated, we have no say. So apart from this exclusive note that I've managed to get, we the people, as usual, are going to be at the receiving end. Let's be alert. Let's see how it works out. Let's put pressure on our members of parliament and ensure that this bill is fair to us when it is finally introduced and if it is ever passed. Thank you.